Captain Reese leaned back in the cold metal chair, his boots propped on the sleek, glassy table. The pristine, white walls of the Alien Academy reflected the sterile order of the room. The door slid open with a whisper, revealing a group of wide-eyed alien students, their gazes a mix of curiosity and disdain. Reese offered them a crooked smile, the kind that hinted at secrets long buried beneath the surface. "Good morning, class," Reese drawled, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Welcome to War Tactics 101. I'm Captain Reese, and today, we're going to learn why humans never lose." The students exchanged glances, their elongated limbs shifting uncomfortably. At the forefront stood Zal, a tall, silver-skinned alien with sharp, angular features. Zal's expression was unreadable, but the tension in his posture betrayed his skepticism. Behind him, Kyra, a smaller figure with soft, violet eyes, watched Reese intently, curiosity flickering beneath her cautious demeanor. "Sir?" Zal's voice was cold, clipped. "We've studied countless battles, analyzed every known tactic across the galaxy. What could you possibly teach us that we haven't already mastered?" Reese chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that filled the room. "You think war is about tactics? About equations and strategies?" He shook his head slowly. "War isn't a game you win by following the rules. It's chaos. Unpredictable. And that's where humans thrive." Zal stiffened, his gaze narrowing. "Chaos leads to mistakes. Mistakes lead to defeat." Reese leaned forward, his smile fading. "Mistakes lead to learning. Adaptation. Survival. Your perfect strategies crumble the moment the enemy does something unexpected. That's the first lesson." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We're not here to play it safe. We're here to win, no matter the cost." The room fell silent, the weight of Reese's words pressing down on the students. Kyra shifted uneasily, her gaze flitting between Reese and Zal. "What's the scenario, Captain?" she asked, her voice softer, more hesitant. Reese's eyes gleamed with a mischievous light. "Glad you asked, Cadet." He tapped a button on the table, and the room darkened. A holographic display sprang to life, projecting a vast battlefield. Alien ships swarmed the skies, while towering structures crumbled under relentless bombardment. "You're defending this outpost," Reese continued, his tone brisk. "Your enemy is relentless, outnumbering you 10-1. You have 24 hours to devise a plan." Zal's jaw tightened, his mind already racing through strategies. "And what's our objective?" "Survival," Reese replied simply. "That's it. No reinforcements, no backup. Just you and the enemy. Let's see how well you adapt when everything goes to hell." The tension in the room thickened, each student grappling with the enormity of the task. Zal's confidence wavered, his rigid mindset struggling against the uncertainty. Kyra, however, felt a thrill of excitement, a spark of something new. Reese's challenge was unlike anything they'd faced before, an exercise not in logic, but in instinct, in improvisation. "Dismissed," Reese said, leaning back again as the lights flickered on. "I'll see you all tomorrow. Don't disappoint me." The students filed out, their minds buzzing with the impossible task ahead. As the doors slid shut behind them, Reese allowed himself a small, satisfied grin. The real lesson had just begun. The tension from the briefing room clung to Zal as he stood at the helm of the simulation chamber. The holographic battlefield stretched out before him, a vast and unforgiving expanse of chaos. Ships blazed across the darkened sky, and explosions rippled through the atmosphere. Every detail was meticulously crafted, from the smoke curling up from burning structures to the distant wails of wounded soldiers. But no matter how real it seemed, Zal knew it was only a test. Yet, failure here could mean more than just a loss of points, it could mean disgrace. "Status report," Zal barked, his voice sharp, masking the unease gnawing at him. Kyra's fingers danced over the console, her violet eyes scanning the data that streamed in. "Shields at 60% and dropping. Enemy forces are advancing on all fronts, overwhelming our defenses." Zal's mind raced, calculating the odds. His training urged him to retreat, regroup, and reinforce traditional tactics. But Reese's words echoed in his thoughts. War isn't a game you win by following the rules. For the first time, Zal questioned whether his perfect strategies would be enough. We need to fall back to the inner perimeter, Zal said, but his tone lacked conviction. Fall back? Kyra's head snapped up, her expression incredulous. That's suicide. We'll be cornered, cut off with nowhere to run. It's the logical move, Zal insisted, but the doubt was clear in his eyes. Logic won't save us, Kyra muttered, more to herself than to him. She stared at the battlefield, her mind churning. What if we did the unexpected? Zal frowned. What do you mean? Captain Reese said humans thrive on chaos. What if we created chaos? Something so unpredictable it throws the enemy off balance? Her voice grew stronger, fueled by a sudden clarity. We divert all power to the front shields and ram their lead ship. If we break their formation, we can create an opening to escape. Zal's instincts rebelled against the idea. It was reckless, irrational. But it was also bold. He hesitated, torn between his training and the unfamiliar path Kyra suggested. Finally, he nodded, conceding to the gamble. Do it! Kyra's hands flew over the controls, redirecting power from their dwindling reserves. The lights flickered as the ship surged forward, its engines roaring in protest. The enemy fleet loomed larger on the screen, their formation tight, efficient, invulnerable. But as Kyra predicted, they hadn't expected a head-on assault. Brace for impact! Zal shouted, gripping the console as the ship shuddered violently. The collision sent shockwaves through the fleet, disrupting their coordinated advance. The enemy ships scrambled to adjust, their tight formation unraveling into disarray. We did it! Kyra's voice was breathless with disbelief. They're breaking ranks! Get us out of here, now! Zal ordered, adrenaline pumping through his veins. The ship veered sharply, slipping through the opening they had carved in the enemy's line. The simulation's chaotic intensity swallowed them whole, but in that chaos, Zal felt something new, a thrill, a rush of exhilaration that came from taking the risk, defying the odds. As the simulated battlefield faded away, the chamber lights flickered back on. Zal and Kyra stood in stunned silence, the reality of their success sinking in. Captain Reese's voice crackled through the comms, his tone laced with approval. Not bad, cadets. Not bad at all. But the praise was short-lived. Zal knew this was just the beginning. The true test lay ahead, and the cost of failure would be far greater than in any simulation. Zal's victory in the simulation left a lingering unease in his mind. The success felt hollow, as if he'd merely survived by luck rather than skill. He couldn't shake the realization that traditional tactics, the ones he had honed to perfection, might not be enough in the face of true chaos. Yet the memory of their desperate maneuver, Kyra's reckless, brilliant plan, stayed with him. For the first time, he understood the allure of unpredictability. The training grounds were a stark contrast to the controlled chaos of the simulation. Here, the cadets drilled in unison, their movements precise, their actions calculated. But as Zal watched his fellow trainees, he felt disconnected from the rigid routine. The simulation had shown him a different way, and now, the old methods felt constricting. Zal, you look distracted, Kyra said, snapping him out of his thoughts. Her tone was casual, but her eyes held a curiosity that hadn't been there before. She had noticed the shift in him, the uncertainty. I'm thinking about what Captain Reese said, Zal replied, his voice quieter than usual. About how humans don't just follow the rules. They bend them, break them when necessary. That's why they win. Kyra nodded slowly, understanding dawning on her face. It's not just about brute force or strategy. It's about adaptability, about embracing the unknown. Zal's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the sky met the jagged landscape of their training world. What if the real test isn't about tactics or skill? What if it's about how far we're willing to go to win? Before Kyra could respond, a shadow fell over them. Captain Reese stood there, his expression unreadable, but his presence commanded attention. Interesting conversation, cadets, he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Care to share? Zal hesitated, but then squared his shoulders. Sir, I was just considering whether our traditional approach to warfare is inadequate. The simulation taught us that sometimes, breaking the rules is necessary to survive. Reese studied Zal with a piercing gaze, then nodded slightly. That's a start, Cadet. But understanding isn't enough. You need to apply it. Adaptation isn't just about survival, it's about turning the tide when all seems lost. Humanity's strength lies in its unpredictability, its refusal to accept defeat. Kyra chimed in, her voice steady. But how do we prepare for that, sir? How do we learn to think like humans? A rare smile touched Reese's lips. You don't think like humans. You think like yourself, free from the constraints of tradition, willing to take risks, to defy expectations. The moment you stop fighting like a soldier and start thinking like a survivor, that's when you'll truly understand. His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Zal felt a knot tighten in his chest, a mixture of fear and excitement. He had spent years mastering the art of war, but now he realized that victory required more than just skill. It demanded a mindset that embraced uncertainty, that welcomed chaos as an opportunity rather than a threat. As Reese walked away, leaving them to their thoughts, Zal turned to Kyra. It's not about the rules anymore, he said, his voice firm with newfound resolve. It's about what we're willing to risk to win. Kyra met his gaze, her expression determined. Then let's start taking risks. The air crackled with tension as Zal and Kyra stood at the entrance of the simulation chamber, their minds sharpened by the lessons of their training. This time, it wasn't just another exercise. It was the final test, a grueling simulation that would determine their future as warriors. Failure was not an option. Captain Reese's voice echoed through the chamber's speakers. Remember, cadets, this is not just a test of skill, but of adaptability. You'll face overwhelming odds. The question is, how far are you willing to go to win? Zal exchanged a glance with Kyra. They had come to understand that victory wasn't about following orders to the letter. It was about thinking beyond the expected, embracing the chaos, and seizing every opportunity, no matter how unconventional. The simulation began with an ominous rumble, the ground beneath them trembling as alien war machines materialized on the horizon. Their towering forms cast long shadows over the desolate landscape, each one bristling with weaponry. The scenario was clear: survive, or be annihilated. We can't fight them head-on, Zal said, scanning the battlefield. His voice was calm, but there was a steely edge to it. We need to outthink them. Use the terrain, force them into traps. Kyra nodded, her eyes narrowing as she analyzed their surroundings. There's a ravine to the north. If we can lure them in, we might be able to trigger a landslide. Risky, Zal replied, his mind racing through the possibilities. But it's better than trying to face them with brute force. They moved swiftly, coordinating their strategy with precise, efficient dialogue. Every word, every gesture was purposeful, their earlier uncertainty replaced by a confident determination. As the alien machines advanced, they lured them into the ravine, planting explosives along the walls. The ground shook violently as the charges detonated, sending tons of rock crashing down onto the unsuspecting enemy. The machines were buried beneath the debris, their weapons silenced in an instant. But the victory was short-lived. More machines appeared, their movements faster, more coordinated than before. They're adapting, Kyra said, a hint of tension in her voice. We need to change tactics again. Zal's mind raced. The situation was spiraling out of control, but instead of panicking, he felt a strange clarity. We've been trying to fight them on their terms, he said slowly. It's time we make them fight on ours. Without another word, Zal hacked into the simulation's environmental controls. The temperature plummeted, ice forming on the machine's surfaces, slowing their movements. At the same time, he triggered a series of electromagnetic pulses, disrupting their targeting systems. The machines faltered, their advance halting. Zal and Kyra pressed their advantage, striking with precision and ferocity. The battle became a blur of motion, every action calculated, every decision a step toward victory. Finally, the last machine collapsed, its lights flickering before going dark. The battlefield fell silent, save for the sound of Zal and Kyra's labored breathing. They had done it. They had won. The chamber doors hissed open, and Captain Reese entered, his expression unreadable. "Well done, cadets. You've proven you can adapt, think on your feet, and make the hard choices. You've shown that you understand what it takes to win, no matter the cost." Zal and Kyra stood tall, their exhaustion tempered by a deep sense of accomplishment. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious, not by brute strength, but by embracing the very chaos they had once feared. As they left the chamber, Zal couldn't help but smile. The final test had taught him one last lesson. True strength wasn't just about power, it was about resilience, adaptability, and the courage to defy the odds. And in that, they had succeeded. The story ends with Zal and Kyra walking away, their journey complete, but their understanding of warfare forever changed.